Good morning and welcome to the Friday edition of Talking Horses. Sarah Bodwe joined by Paul Verderosa today. Breeders' Cup Friday, of course, and we've got a full day of racing right here in New York as well. What is the Breeders' Cup race today you're looking forward to the most?
I want to see Lake Victoria run today for Aiden O'Brien. I think the horse looks so much more professional last time at Newmarket. I know there's not going to be much of a price on that horse. Two starts back. Took a little time to get over to her left lead, but she's perfect. And she's coming here. She's big. She's strong. And she looks like she's the goods. So we'll see what kind of price we get on her from the inside post
Yeah,
in the
morning line.
Phillies turf. Yeah.
Yeah, morning line favorite, but plenty of alternative ways to go. So we'll see what the betting ultimately ends up playing out as for a lot of those Breeders' Cup races. But we have racing here as well. We have a 9-race card today. Plenty of action coming up right here from Belmont at the Big A, as we only have a couple days left in the meet. And if you haven't signed up yet with Naira Bets, I don't know what you've been doing this entire time. What are you doing? Arthur's Ride, he runs tomorrow. He wants you to sign up. $25 free bet, $200 bonus. Promo code right now is CUP25 for the Breeders' Cup. You can also scan that QR code as well. You can also head on over to Track Stats. My good friend Matthew DeSantis works nonstop around the clock to update those as well as push out plenty of content for Naira Bets. You can visit nairabets.com, Track Stats, to find out more information about who's winning and from where and what the track trends are. We also have a bonus 10% Breeders' Cup profit boost today. You can hit a win bet on any Breeders' Cup race at Del Mar. You'll get a 10% bonus if you opt in over at Naira Bets. And if there are a couple favorites you like, you can turn those short prices into a little something extra for yourself by playing through Naira Bets and opting in. And then today's show, we do have a little bit of a break, but we start at 12:30, we go until 1:30, and then we pick things back up at 3 p.m. until 5:30. And amidst today's card, there will be plenty of discussion about both days of Breeders' Cup races coming up at Del Mar as well. Get to the first race.
Yeah.
And a horse that you and I both had some interest in ends up scratching out of here in Trumptastic in this starter allowance going the 6 furlongs. And then you're left with a horse like Dillinger, who has been a short price over his last 2 starts, and he has finished second more times than he's gotten himself to the winner's circle. But he always seems to run well, and overall, he just has some races that are kind of faster than a lot of the horses that he's now facing in this field. And we'll take a look at his race back on August 30th, where he ends up finishing behind a horse in Tommy Two Socks, and it's kind of the theme for him as of his last couple of starts.
Yeah, I know. And last time was kind of a nice little hang job, too. I mean, granted, he was 4 to 5 wide. And again, that field last time out was like a battle of horses who'd love to finish second, too. And it's funny how Manny Franco tried to kind of keep him away from Night Effect in there because he likes to run with his head out and he kind of likes to get out a little bit too. So he's trying to get away from him. But his numbers say he's the fastest horse in the race. He has an outside post today. He should be forward in here. I scratched into him because I had Trumptastic on top. I mean, I'm not really proud of the 3 to 5. I'm probably going to end up getting on a horse who now last time out had a tendency to hang off a couple of seconds. But when I looked at the rest of this group, I just thought he was the best horse in the race.
He is, and I don't disagree with that whatsoever. And that was actually Bermudo getting by him, coupled in the entry with Tommy Two Stocks, who will be running again today. And I think this field, in relation to some of the fields that he's been in over his last couple of starts, it's a softer group than what he's been facing. And I was about to scratch into him as well. And then I kept looking at Cam Duke and thinking, how can I make an insane case for this horse to possibly get back to one of his faster races, which on paper is actually still not fast enough to compete with the Dillinger that we have seen lately. But I think that if you isolate this year, you can make some excuses for this horse who is 1 for 21 and won't be this insanely short-priced favorite, because he comes back off a layoff in April, duels with another horse early, he loses that battle, finishes second. May 12th, he's stepping back up in class. He runs a great race, finishing second, and they're at a big price. The track was changing throughout the day, but it's arguable that speed was advantageous. What didn't change was that the rail was good and a possible advantage.
Yeah.
He never saw the rail that day, still ran well. June 6th, it's Belmont at Saratoga. He wanted to be inside speed for most of that weekend. He ends up being eased at a distance that I think is still a little bit too far for him, pushing things with the 7 furlongs anyway. Then he comes back going 7 again in July. Dylan's aggressive with him. He ends up fading in there. And then at Monmouth, he's aggressive again. The pace falls apart. It was an outside flow type of race. And then last time out, inside speed, a possible advantage. He's always wide. So he's going to be a price. He's still on his best day, hoping for Dillinger to have another hang job that he has been over his last couple of starts. But at a price that's so vastly different than I think that we're going to get on your super short priced favorite, who I'm sure is a likely single for many and multis to start things off. I just had to make my crazy case for him.
It's not that crazy. He's a
It's a little
horse
crazy.
last year that I thought would actually pan out better than he did,
I
based
think a
on
lot of
some of
people
the
did.
efforts he had. Yeah, and I think I feel bad too. I might be responsible for that because when Jimmy Ryerson was going
It's
through
all
his
your
stretch,
fault.
I know I'll be the lightning rod of hate. It's okay. I picked this horse a couple of times too, so I just worry with this horse that Paxational is going to get an aggressive ride from Ruben Silvera inside, and maybe Forward Move will be up a little bit close too. But listen, if you don't think Dillinger is going to actually win today, and he's going to run second
It's
again,
very open.
then it's a very open race.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It was a move on to the second race where things don't necessarily get much easier. A couple of scratches in there. And you have a horse who isn't exactly a winning type, but did win his last start and did so pretty solidly. And that is Hatch, who, I mean, he was that proverbial hanger type of horse.
Yeah.
And then last time out, he ends up getting the job done over a classic mark. And I thought that he held on pretty bravely in that race on the 29th of September that we can check out. I mean, is he going to run that same type of race now, switching over to the Rick Dutrow barn and getting a fast track again? He certainly handled one in the past, but he's tough to trust.
Yeah, and I think he benefited last time too from Ricardo Santana being aggressive with him too, because he took a lot of heat and pressure, and he still ran well in here, and he really hadn't performed all that great over off goings, all different kinds going into that race as well. So I think the aggressiveness helped there. I mean, I would hope Luis Rivera is going to have him a little bit forward in here again. I think there's one or two other speeds that may be able to keep him a little bit of company in here. Yeah, I mean, this was another race where I lost high heat, so I'm batting 1,000 so far. I should just go home. This is like two races, two top picks gone. So
Bye, Paul.
bye. All right, I'll leave you to do the rest of the show.
No,
now.
that's okay. You can hang out here with me. Look, I mean, I had some interest in high heat as well, and Disco Dino was a player within this field, and he's not going to be playing today. So I think you're left with who do you trust, and when you're dealing with 12,500 claimers, it's a tough question
Yeah.
to ask. And I think that for me with Nolo Contesto, I liked that he was a part of pace that ended up backing up and was still around towards the end. And
Yeah.
now he's not going to be a big price, and he hasn't been over his last two starts. But I like that he did step up to the competition he was facing last time when Cunchen Bridge just dropped significantly in class, and also was benefited by the flow of that race coming from off the pace. Papa Rocket was a horse that was closing from the back of the pack in there. And I like what now, okay, second off the claim for Rob Atras, he's facing a field that doesn't have the same drastic class drops.
Yeah, and it's okay that he's dropping a little bit too, because last race was actually one of his better races that he finally got back to. So it was good to see that he was up close, and in here, I guess in some ways now, I mean, he's the horse to beat, I guess, in here if you don't
Yeah.
trust Hatch now and you look around the field. I just think again he's another horse. We talk about it, and Ricardo Santana just rode really well when he's been here and just aggressive with horses and put him up on the pace, and it benefited him. So if he gets back to one of his better races and comes forward off of that, he's going to run well here today, I think.
You like Super Chief towards the outside with Lane Leslie.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like when you look at this horse, I think he's the type that you need to kind of be patient on him a little bit and just have some like quiet hands on him. We saw Manny give him that kind of ride last time. And Lane's got the right fit for him too. Just let this horse do what he wants to do and settle and make that run. I think this is the right level for him now too when you look at a horse like this being in that 10 to 12-5 range. And I think he's going to be the outside horse that's going to be stalking whatever pace there is, maybe off of Nolo Contesto. And we'll see if he can kick clear and get two in a row in here. For me, I just think he ran a good race last time, and he's just at the right level now.
Yeah, I think that the two races, 2 and 3 back, were just a little bit above where he's comfortable competing, and I think that he showed up at a level that made sense. And we both have some interest in Air Show Second, a horse that he has some big races to go back to, and it seems like maybe he could be one that's rounding back into form. What did you like about him?
I think he does his best running off the pace. And when you look at the race last time at Finger Lakes, too, he ran second to his stablemate, Grey Wing, who's been doing well. And if you go back 3 starts, he kind of got slammed at the start. And then the last couple of starts combined with that start, he's been very wide, too. No, we're talking about the 4 Air Show. Sorry about that. I'm looking at the 7.
I was like, when did he race it? Finger
Yeah,
Lakes?
I'm looking at
Wow.
the 7. I'm sorry. I got the 7 on my mind because I got the 7-4 up there with you. No, Air Show's dropping in class. He's faced better fields.
Yeah.
And, he was a little bit more forward than he has been in his last 2 starts, which I actually like. So, and last field was better than this. So, hopefully he'll sit a little bit of a trip out there. I mean, like I said, I think if there's any pace that develops, he's the horse that can come from off the pace. And I mentioned Uncle George too, so I guess the 7 will also be there too.
He's definitely
Yeah,
a consistent
coming,
type
coming from
within
off the pace.
the
Yeah.
rest of this group that is at a premium. Moving on to the third race, and we do have some horses that are going to likely vie for the first and second choice in here. That makes some sense, and I ultimately went in a different direction. But First Class Cat did have some trouble out of the gate in her last start, and still ran well, I thought. And looking at the head-on, you can really see that she is slammed on both sides by either horse, inside and outside of her.
Yeah, it definitely, took her out of her game a little bit and ended up having her back much further than she likes to be. To her credit, I mean, she did end up running second that day and gained ground late. And honestly, when you look at this horse, I mean, figures have gotten better since Linda kind of raised her up in class in here. So I think with a better break today, probably see Kendrick keep her a little bit closer.
Yeah,
I think to
yeah.
whatever pace is in here.
I agree with you on that. I don't think she really wants to be that far off of things as she was last time and sort of had things against her. I just sort of wonder how good was that field overall in comparison to some horses that, as of late, they haven't really shown much, but have a race to go back to that could be a little bit better, I think, than the field that
Yeah.
these two were facing last time. And a horse that does need to get a bit better off the trainer switch is one that I opted for with Capital Gal, who has not really shown much, and I think she's been in a lot of different barns. People are trying to figure out what she would do well enough to be competitive, and they've tried a lot of different things with her. But Jorge Abreu has good stats first time as the trainer in his barn. He's 17%, he's $2.50 ROI, and I'm hoping that making this trainer change, he can figure out something that someone else has not as of yet, because she certainly does need to improve. But I just wasn't in love with the two horses that are going to be shorter prices, and then darn that song as well.
Yeah, I mean, in Capital Gal's case, it just hasn't shown any form here. That's like my biggest problem. Like the races here just haven't been that good. I mean, at least she was a little bit forward back on July 7th, but even at that, she wasn't, there at the end of the race. So, I mean, she'll need a big wake up, but I mean, you're going to get a good price, on her for sure, hopefully with that. And darn that song, the last two were definitely her best efforts by far, but my biggest problem, and I know she ran into Sweet Brown Sugar, who's a stakes winner
She's
for Paul
good.
Bauer. Yeah, it's a good horse and won the Eastview back here in March, I think it was. But just looking at her races, like she hasn't fired anything like higher
To
than
warrant that
57.
price.
Yeah,
Right.
like to warrant that short price. So is she a new horse now, and you're willing to take that
Yeah.
chance now at a short price, or is she going to run back to her previous form downstate here and not
Right.
put in one of her better efforts and just be off the board at 7-5?
Where many of these horses have been able to defeat her before,
Yeah.
so I think you're hoping that she is now this 70 something buyer horse when she just has those last two races that recently suggest that she's turned a corner, and maybe she has, but I think that we've seen some of the others in this field take turns beating her, and then a horse I didn't really know what to do with, but I wanted to include somewhere was Carol T, because she does have
Yeah.
some races that fit in here. I don't know what's happened to her form as of late. She's been pretty disappointing, but I'm just hoping that she can get back to some of the races that would actually be effective here if we don't really see that 70 type of number from Darn That Song again.
Yeah, and I mean, her last two leave a little bit of pause, and I thought last time out she was in an okay spot. She made a little bit of a move,
Yeah.
too, in the
Just kinda
same
flat.
race that First Class as my Bronx Baby came out of. And my Bronx Baby actually got the better trip over First Class Cat, all things considered, at the end of the day. So I kind of just leaned in the direction of using the 6 and 7 because I just don't know if Carol T's got anything left in the tank. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
find out today, if she can still run a little bit, but she's in a lot of 6 and 7s out of that race.
Yeah, and you had a little interest in Amy's Light non-starter last time out, kind of an
Yeah,
unknown.
I thought I thought she still ran on okay, all things considered in that race over Geopolitics, who, is one of those big hype forces who just doesn't
blinkers
seem
have
to-
changed
yeah,
everything,
Yeah, just
so.
changed everything, right? So, yeah, I mean, just coming from off the pace, I just wanted somebody underneath there in the third and fourth spot. I thought Amy's Light was a horse that you could maybe cozy up to at a price.
Yeah,
Make your tries
I
out.
mean, a relative unknown. As we move on to race number 4, we get on to the grass. We have a mile and an eighth race, a starter optional claiming for the fillies and mares. And it seems as though some horses had some trips in their last starts that could be usable in here. And we'll take a look at Settling Storm, who I think ran pretty well on October 4th. And that was that opening weekend, or a second to opening weekend, where you really did want to save ground. And this is a horse that ended up not really being towards the rail through a lot of this race.
Yeah, and I just kind of feel like too when you watch the race, I feel like her momentum kind of got slowed down a little bit too when the two came out a bit on her in the stretch as well. So, for me, she was in between horses for a while, and I just think today you're going to want her a little bit closer, like she was 2 or 3 starts back. And I'm not necessarily going to say she's going to be on the lead in here, but I just think you want her closer for sure than she was based on the last couple of trips she's had.
And I think with her, there was some maybe indecision about which path to take
Yeah.
and looking to see what was going to be open in front of her. And I think that those moments of pause didn't really allow her to get into a moment where she was going to be showing any sort of turn of foot. So it seems like she just sort of ran in place. But she has plenty of races that make some sense here in terms of the numbers she's been running lately. I went to Spooky Lady, who I see that you have second, and just hoping that she can show some of that speed that we tend to see from her. And I thought she's
Yeah.
been facing some better fields overall over her last couple of starts. And I know that she can be forward in a race that's going this type of distance. Maybe she's a horse that is tailing off as of late, but I think that relative to the competition that she's been facing lately, this is a field where she could have a better chance to wire the field.
Yeah, this is a spot where she's, if she breaks well, she's just supposed to be on the front and she's just supposed to go, and she is the speed from the inside. And I think, I mean, I have her second in here. For me, it was a lot of threes and ones in here because I just thought they would be 1-2 or at least 1-3 around the track, and Settling Storm would get first run on everybody else. But by far, I think this is probably the easiest field she's been in a while.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Collaboration seems to be one that's getting into some good form that she used to have. And we both have a little interest in Dream Central, who I don't really know what her level of ability truly is, but I think that she just had no opportunity to show much of anything off that layoff in that last start.
Yeah, it was a good tightening race for her. I think she'll be better for it, coming off of that layoff in here. And I don't even think the race she ran in November 9th behind everybody's favorite Master of the Tunes was that bad either. Got a good number
favorite,
for that
one
race.
person's favorite.
Yeah,
Not anymore.
not me either. So, but I thought that race was okay, and that figure, plays in here. So,
Yeah.
I think, just has to find a trip from the outside post out there. It just hasn't shown that much speed lately to be forward again. So I don't know if this horse is going to end up getting hung wide in here. And I don't know. I think it's going to be better off if you've got some speed in here and you're up close.
And then next on stage is going to be one of the shorter prices in here. I know that she was caught a little bit wide in that last start, but I wasn't too in love with her running in that race behind Settling Storm in terms of the price that she was, and just I don't know. I was left a little bit cold.
Yeah, the race was a little bit disappointing. The only thing I will say is, we've seen it in the last couple of weeks where Maro Mirage has been good at getting horses to settle on the front end and get them to finish. So maybe this time, he can get her home to do that, getting the most out of them in the final quarter of a mile with some speed horses. But I don't know. I would rather have the one over her.
Yeah, I am
this
with
spot.
you on that as we'll move on to maiden special weight race in the 5th, and we can take a break after 5 in here, and we can take a look back on a couple of horses that are coming out of a common race where Tam I Am and Pretty Liza and even So Darn Pretty was in this race as well, and everyone ends up being defeated by another horse in here that was able to save perhaps a little bit more ground in the earlier stages of the race than they were. Tam I Am was a short price last time. She's going to be a shorter price again today. She can win, but I just didn't want to pick her on top.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you. I know Candy Quest got a good trip. It was a Pletcher firster that got one of those inside-out trips and came running late. But, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the two efforts from Tam I Am. And even the 5.5 furlong race at Saratoga, we talk about how those races are run a little bit differently than when we get back here and you run 6 and you run a little bit longer from a pace standpoint. But I mean, I guess she's going to probably end up being the favorite in here. I just thought there was a couple of more interesting alternatives as opposed to her. I mean, you're going to get what you're going to get with her, and she's going to run her race, and she may be the horse to beat in here, but you're going to have to take a short price.
Exactly. And I thought that she was able to save ground for the most part in that race. And even So Darn Pretty, who ended up setting the pace in there, she got right over to the rail as well. So I wanted Pretty Liza out of that race. The horse was never on the rail in that spot, and I thought ran fairly well. And the price differential is going to be there with these two. With the horse that never had the opportunity to save that inside position versus two that at least at some point during that race did get over there to save some ground. But you got into a horse that doesn't come out of that race with Bembridge Ledge.
I think the cutback is literally the key for this horse today. I think it's huge. When you look at this race last time out at, down at Keeneland and all, I don't think this horse wants to go a mile at all. And I just think it wasn't the right trip for this horse. I know this horse was up close, but kind of backed out late. And then when you go back to the Kentucky Downs race, Corretto was fine. Corretto ran well in the Miss Grillo, was third in there. Then
Well,
even
was
that,
she really third?
well, yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah, I mean, for a split hairs. But I thought that this horse ran okay and kind of, was up close and vied, and it was a good race, a good debut, a good stepping start for this horse. The mile at Keeneland, I just feel like got pushed wide when they turned for home, and Luis Ayas tried to get this horse to go, but they just kept going wider and wider and wider. So I think the cutback for her today is going to be key going 6 furlongs. I like the inside post for this horse. Maybe she can get good position from the inside, show a little bit of speed here. I think you're going to end up getting a price on this horse. I really think she's going to be in like the 4 or 5 to 1 range.
Yeah, I think that two horses that I don't particularly have a lot of interest in, but that will take some money in here off of their last race. That's Bossy Pants and Panache. And didn't they both just save plenty of ground behind a horse who was a huge price for Mike Maker and ended up winning? And that was really the time where you wanted to save ground on the turf.
Yeah, I agree. It's just in Bossy Pants' face. I just feel like maybe today there'll be a little bit more speed with some horses that have shown, or second time out, especially in the case of like Mia Vita. See what happens with her. So darn pretty. They show a little bit of speed. Tam I might be up there. So if you get some horses that are pressing and that are up close, I was thinking that that's the horse you may want to have off the pace. I just think this horse got steadied a little bit, got taken out a little bit, and came wide off the turn and picked off half the field while being wide. So we'll see how it plays out for her. I probably should have, in retrospect, put your 8 up there in 4th as opposed to having the 6 there. But Bossy Pants was kind of the horse I wanted a little bit from off the pace.
I hear you on that. She did have a little bit of trouble in that spot. We'll take a quick break, hear from our sponsor over at Saratoga Water. We'll be right back.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Thank you to our friends over at Saratoga Water. Sarah and Paul here to bring you the rest of the 9-race card today. And I think the most significant scratches did end up occurring in the 6th race because all of the speed, at least on paper, has completely come out of this race as you have a couple of horses that were likely to be forward with Seas Get Degrees, Charging Arrow, even Talkin' Pharaoh, not going to play today. So that changes the entire dynamic of this race.
Yeah, and now I'm kind of just looking at this race and just hoping that Kendrick breaks well with Mr. JT and somehow finds himself up front, or going back to almost like that race back at Saratoga on August 11th where he was up and on the pace in here, because there really just isn't much pace in here now anymore. I mean, Pipes and Drums had a little bit of speed, but not a lot. And, I mean, Poppy's Pride, now the other half of the entry, again, it's not.
Yeah, I don't love that horse, but he projects to be the speed now, and so it's murky at this point because I had some interest in a couple of horses coming from off the pace in all likelihood, and I thought that things would be at least fair on the front end in this race, and I don't believe that is going to be the case anymore. And I don't like Cold as Hell's last race, but if you go back to the race prior to that, legitimate excuse, stumbling at the break, that was the day where Secret Rules was able to get that other win of his, and he is now second off the claim for Rick Dutrow, and he can be more forward than he has been in some of his starts. He has a little bit of tactical ability. I'm hoping that with the lack of speed in this race, Jose Gomez is a little bit more aggressive with him, like they were in that race where they finished second to Disco Dino at a big price at Saratoga. And I don't love him coming off of an effort that, while it was in the line for some of his figures as of late, it wasn't really a race that I think would be competitive here. But I think that now if he just goes, maybe he has the opportunity to possibly be there.
I would think it's probably his best way for
In this
Jose
race, for
Gomez to
sure.
go. Like, yeah, I think it's probably his best and only way to probably. Originally, I liked him with a little bit more speed in here because I just thought he might trip out today. I thought he might sit a good trip and just end up having it all work out for him from just off the pace. Listen, last time out, it looks bad on its face, but he made a little bit of a run towards the half and then just kind of backed out of there. So I don't know if he just didn't have a good day. I just don't know what it was, but
He
these
had
are
a
more in
bad
line.
day.
Yeah, I mean, these are like
Just
kind of
feeling
like
cold as hell.
in his. There you go. That's a good way of putting it. We'll see what happens with him, from that outside post, and if they're aggressive with him to do it.
Because who else is going to go?
No, but that's why I'm like, if you don't like Poppy's pride in here, which we both don't. Well, you have your second now, but I just
Now.
did you have it now or did you have it earlier?
No,
'Cause I
not
didn't-
earlier.
Yeah.
I did not have him in the top
Yeah,
4 earlier, but now it's just, I mean, we often see these races that are just stolen on the front end, and so
Yeah.
I didn't want to completely dismiss him because he projects to be the speed.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't know. This got a little murky for me. I'm just going to stick with Mr. JT in here. Kendrick's aggressive.
And
Him is he first or second, just somewhere off the pace.
out of all the riders to trust to do that, he is
Yeah, Kendrick will
a
be
good
the one to do that for sure.
to put all your eggs in that basket. As we move on to the 7th race, where I think that we'll see a little bit more speed in here as we have a couple of horses that are rematching. And Bring Me a Check last time was the time for me with him, and I have to ultimately part ways with a horse that was a bigger price last time. I thought was very aggressively ridden by none other than Ricardo Santana Jr. to be so far ahead of It's All Coming Together to the point where it wasn't that pace duel that maybe we thought was going to materialize, and he just gets beat by a horse that I think is a little bit better than him in unit economics, and now he's not going to be that price.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in unit economics case, that was that Chad Browers that finally got a clean trip. Finally had everything alone, isolated in the back early, and then made that run. I mean, I'm sorry I ran you down in that race, to be honest. I
all
felt a
your
little bad
fault.
for you. Yeah, I felt a little bad.
I felt a little bad for me too.
I'm
Thank
sure you did. But getting back out to the mile and a 16th, I wonder is just a question, with Bring Me a Check. I mean, I do have the horse second in here. I just feel like that was back to a better race, for that horse. I know the horse had run second 2 starts, prior to that in both starts. I think they were all a step in the right direction, but I thought last time was probably the best effort. I think today, when you kind of look around and you feel that, I mean, shouldn't this horse be sitting almost in the same spot anyway, second or third potentially, even if the horse doesn't get the lead? The horse should be able to get a good trip again.
I think they're going to be more aggressive with the horse that you picked on top
Yeah.
this time, with It's All Coming Together, a horse that is perfectly capable of being in front if he wants to be. I think that maybe last time they were a little bit passive with him. They could have challenged Bring Me a Check earlier on, and I know that he ran well, but he is a horse that I think is better forward, and I think that might help a horse that I ended up going to in here who just did not get the trip in that last race, and Ramblin' Wreck, who he was coming at the end. He usually is. He is one that needs a setup, and I think that maybe today, if they are a little bit more aggressive with It's All Coming Together, he might get a little bit more pace, but he had nowhere to go in deep stretch, and he still was able to regain some momentum and be a part of that picture in the later stages. So I think with a cleaner trip, he ends up being a horse that's a little bit more intriguing. The problem is that he's just never a price.
The thing is, he's never a price. He's no early speed either, and he runs competitive figures. Listen, the story with this race, too, is they all basically run the same figure and the same race most of the time. So ultimately, it comes down.
Who is it today?
Yeah, it comes down to trip, and if you think somebody's going to be able to get a clean trip and close, I don't know. Just not for me, just based on the way that he just doesn't seem to get there anyway, and he's at the mercy of what's going on in front of him, and I just feel like I want horses that are going to be forwardly placed and not have to weave their way through traffic or come wide on a turf course now that we're heading towards November. That sometimes tends to change with the weather around here, although it's been warm as hell around here. It doesn't matter. It's like we're running in the spring.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I just wanted forwardly placed horses. That's why I used Bring Me a Check and then ultimately landed on It's Coming Together, because I'd like to just see Julian Leparoux be aggressive with this horse and, just go if this horse breaks and not take back. And we've seen that happen sometimes before. So get a nice inside trip in there. And, I just think this horse is going to be a good price in here and be forward. And I just wanted horses that were forward.
I don't blame you. I think that I'm just a little bit bitter about my loss last time with Bring Me a Check, and I think that tactics may change for another pace player potentially, but you never know around here. And then Spirit Prince, I mean, he is sort of that horse who didn't run quite as well in that start that many of them are coming out of. But if you go back, he was stakes faced, and I think that he is one that he's going to have to work out a trip from that outside position. But I guess that if you are seeing these horses that run similar races from time to time, he's one of the ones that is a slightly better price this time.
And I'll say this, I like the rider switch for him to Ruben Silvera because I think Joel was just too passive with him. And we've seen that kind of sometimes with Joel where he'll take back with a horse and kind of make that one run. I think he needs a little bit more of an aggressive rider, and Ruben certainly is that to get him into the race where he's shown speed before, or at least positional speed to be able to be tactical.
He doesn't have to be that far back.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with you on that as we get into our stakes race. Today, the 8th race, the Atlantic Beach Stakes, we're sprinting on the turf, and this is a group that I had a hard time having a strong opinion about, and we'll take a look at Epitaph finishing behind Menti in the Futurity Stakes. Menti, of course, going on to today's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I thought this was a good effort at a bigger price for him. He's looking Menti right in the eye in here, and he ends up being beat, but I thought that he was pretty game in this spot and just ended up getting defeated by a horse that in all likelihood is a little bit better than he is.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, it was a comfortable trip for him, and, he got to set that pace, and we'll see if he gets another trip on top in here. That race did come back on the fast side, so, and the horses that were in front of him were Todd runners, so, they both ran well in there. I mean, I guess he projects to I think there's a little bit more speed in here to keep him company. I just don't know how comfortable, he's going to be. And get that kind of trip again. I left him completely out of my top 4. I just was wondering if he was going to get cooked in some kind of battle today or end up, giving way late. We'll find out what happens, but
yeah, I think that really depends on how the horses that are trying this surface for the first time end up translating that speed that they did show on the dirt. If they can translate that to the turf, I think he's in trouble. But we often see turf speed be so much more potent than dirt speed that I'm thinking that at least I know that he can be forward on the grass, where that's an unknown for Shoot the Nickel as well as Super Swift towards his inside. So not that they can't do it, but at least I've seen it from him. And I think that he is a little bit more of that proven commodity running well against stakes face company. But you've gone to a horse who had to come from extremely wide to be a part of things in Colonials, Rosie's Stakes, and that's Ghostly Rose down towards the inside.
I am hoping that the 6 furlongs is ultimately going to be what helps this horse out immensely. When you take a look at this race, I mean, this horse did come from a long way out of it. Actually had trouble in both of those turf sprints that this horse has been in. Got checked early, 3 starts back over at Monmouth. And then if you go back to this race that we're looking at, got bumped pretty good at the break and then ends up having come about 7, 8 wide in the lane to come with run. And really, Governor Salmon out on bail, they're 2 good horses. They came back, ran 1-2 in the Indian Summer down to Keeneland. The second dam is a stakes winner, on the grass for this horse. This horse definitely has the pedigree for the surface, and I think getting out to the 6 furlongs is going to help today, get to stretch this horse's legs a little bit more and should be able to come running late at anything that's in front with a cleaner trip from down inside.
The horse has definitely had some trouble in a couple of starts. I mean, not only that one having to make that wide journey, but even going wide last time on the synthetic and then having a little bit of traffic in the start prior to that. So I see where you're coming from on this one. I just wonder ultimately in terms of class where this one does fit, but there's a case to be made. And then what do you do with Super Swift, who is so turfy on the dam side? This is really a top and bottom George Weaver homebred here. And it's all turf with the dam as who's graded stakes faced on the grass, and is certainly a very successful type. And I thought ran well in that off the turf race to get the victory.
Yeah, it was a nice debut, too. The horse actually ended up getting a good trip, got rated nicely, and then kind of made that little nice outside move and ran them down in the stretch. Thought it was a nice professional start. We'll see if transfer over to the grass, which I think based on the pedigree shouldn't be a problem. We'll see from a pace standpoint also where this horse shakes out now having the inside post too. We'll see again if this horse will show more speed second time out and on the grass. Wasn't that far out of it breaking from the 1 hole last time either. So it'll be interesting to see if this horse can trip out in here. I wonder at the end of the day how they're going to bet this race too when you look at this, because David's usually right and he has this horse 5-2 on the morning line. So I think it's a little wide open between the 1, the 5, and the 8 horses that are going to take some money.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And then a horse that is likely not going to take some money is Dumb Money, which I think is a great name. I don't know how good this horse is, and he may not be, but I thought that he was another one to add even more pace to this race. I thought that this was a good effort where he ended up going wide to get that lead. And who did he beat? maybe nobody. But I thought that this was a race that suggests that he could be potentially a sneaky horse to throw in underneath somewhere because he's fading in the later stages, but he had to cover quite a bit more ground than many of the other horses in that spot. And I think that he's going to be another pace player in here.
You know, in the debut, this horse had problems at the start a little bit and then actually ran on. This effort was much, much better. I like the fact that this horse was actually parked on the front because he also gives off that look when you watch him run that he wants to go. Like he's built for speed when you look at him. So he'll add to the pace for sure, I think, in here. I guess the question is from a class standpoint. But, I mean, if you want to use him underneath, I have no problem taking a horse at a big price that's going to spice up a triple or a super for you for sure. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's going to have to improve off of the 58 for sure. Yeah, you know, but we'll see. You know, listen, at this time of the year, it's a late start. Sometimes they improve as we go along. So
Yeah, and then another main player that we haven't touched on yet, Warhart, just cutting back in distance after being a big price down at Keeneland in that Bourbon. I mean, his race has been productive that he won at Kentucky Downs, but when I looked at that race for him that he was able to get the victory over City of Oscars, who came back to win, it was the third place finisher in that race to me, Hard Circle, that had the toughest trip
Yeah.
of the three. So I had a little bit of trouble endorsing him off of that race as being the best in that race, but he can certainly win.
yeah, listen, looking at him, I think sprinting's probably what he wanted to do all along. They gave him a shot in the Bourbon, and I don't think he ran necessarily that bad. I mean, he was with them until he kind of got steadied and shuffled out of there a little bit, and then he just kind of packed it in for the day. But I think the cutback will help today. I mean, when you look at him, he doesn't necessarily have to be up on the pace. You know, here he was kind of at Kentucky Downs, which you take kind of with a grain of salt, where those races are run and the run-ups and everything there. But he's a horse that can literally sit third or fourth in here and just make one run late if right. So he's going to be one of the shorter prices. Again, do you trust him coming in here based on his couple of races? But I think if you want him, you're going to hang your hat on that he definitely wants to sprint.
And at least he has some turf form, unlike a couple of others who are trying that surface for the first time. And then to close things out, kind of a scramble in the last race. 7 furlongs made and claiming a $20,000. And there is not a lot to endorse in here with some of these horses in the form that we have seen from them as of late. We've seen a lot of some of these horses, and we have gotten to know what some of them are capable of for sure. But you went to Forced Errors, who is adding blinkers in this spot.
I have two opinions on this race. They're
Okay.
really simple. Forced Errors puts blinkers on. Abner Adorno, one job, break well, just go, try and bottom out the field, and get the job done wire to wire. And in Dangerous Driver's case, Katie, you're just going to sit off that pace, and if the two stops, you're going to roll on by.
I mean, when you,
Based on form, I mean, to me, it was just that simple.
when you look at with Forced Errors and everybody else in this field, it's what I call less chances to lose.
Yeah.
So you have less opportunities for disappointment, and you don't have the same record of really proving who you are over and over again with different things thrown at you. So he is a little bit more lightly raced than some of the other horses in this field, and I think that you want to be forward in a race like this. When you look at Dangerous Driver, if you isolate his dirt races, it looks less unappetizing for him in terms of the amount of starts that he's had and opportunities that he's had. And I think that in that last start on the dirt, I mean, those are just some horses that are a little bit better than what he's going to be facing today, with Treaty Obligation winning that race. At one time, Houghton was a horse that could run some faster races. And I think when he's been spotted on the dirt in races that make sense for him, he's been competitive enough to have a chance in here. And then there just aren't a lot of other directions to go, because Guile is a horse whose chances are slowly adding up at short prices. I know that he hasn't had as many opportunities as some of the others in here, but he gets bet.
Yeah, and I've seen enough of Guile. Guile's kind of reminding me of Jansen. You know, he's run races where he could win. No,
that's
he's
mean.
It's not. It's not. No, believe me when
To
I tell you, it
Guile.
is not mean to be mean-spirited. It's just
To
horses
Guile.
that have won winning races and just haven't won. You know, just
Yeah.
haven't sealed the deal. And he's had a couple of starts where he's had the ability to be up on the pace, or at least be able to try and get the lead. Hasn't gotten it, and then just kind of backed out late. And it's hard for me to take horses that lose ground in the lane. And
Yeah.
he just does that more often than not. So for me, I had enough of him, and that's why I went in different directions with the 2, 6, and 8 in here.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And then a horse that I don't really know what to do with him, but he is third off a layoff and has a couple of races that could be competitive here, and that's Bolta Plata. towards the outside, who is adding the blinkers back on. And this seems like a tricky horse to ride. I remember when Trevor McCarthy was riding him in some of these starts, especially this one that we'll take a look at here. He looks like he's going to make this big closing run relative
Yeah.
to this group around the turn, and then he lugs in very sharply. And you'll see right here, Trevor's really trying to keep him on a straight path. He wants to cross over towards the inside, and I think that he just does himself no favors, and now he's behind another horse, has to straighten up, loses that forward momentum, and at this level, you can't do that and still be successful for the most part. So he seems like a tough horse to really get along with, but he has some races that could be competitive in here somewhere in the past.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at some of those maiden special weight races, for sure, he's been competitive, and he's just another one that's just had so many chances. But the
Yeah.
lack of early speed hurts him too.
Yep.
In this spot, puts him behind the 8 ball, and when you look at these lower level races, especially the maiden claimers, you just got to get a horse that can get in front and braven up sometimes, and they just forget to stop, out there, and there's not that much passing that'll want to go on. So. Yeah, this was tough to look at, to go on if you're trying to grab and hang on to some kind of form in here. And just for me, I just wanted the horse that was going to be forward in here, or at least I thought that was going to end up making the pace.
Right, and we're both against Prairie Dunes towards the outside, just who
Yeah.
has no speed at all.
Again, another
And
horse, that you look at that just doesn't have any forward position. There was that one race, back on June 30th where you thought, okay, the horse was a little bit closer and kind of made a little bit of a run, but just backed up there and got beat by 6.
Yeah, I didn't want to trust this one at a shorter price because I knew that he would not be known early in this race, even if he is late. But that'll do it for Paul and I for today's 9-race card. And of course, happy Breeders' Cup Friday to everyone out there, and good luck on all of your wagers here and over at Del Mar and anywhere else that you're playing. But you'll want to play with Naira Bets, and you can go ahead and get signed up, get that $25 free bet and your $200 bonus with the promo code CUP25. If you're not a member yet, I just don't know what you've been doing this whole time. And to better your betting action, you can head on over to Track Stats, see how the track is playing here at Aqueduct, and get more insight from Matthew DeSantis, who works tirelessly on everything that he does. And of course, you can also head on over to get a bonus and get that 10% Breeders' Cup profit boost. If you hit a win bet on any Breeders' Cup race at Del Mar, you'll get a 10% bonus if you opt in over at Naira Bets. Today's show, there is a little bit of gap in coverage, but we will have simulcast during that time. If you go watch on FS2 from 12:30 to 1:30, and then we're back on at 3 o'clock to 5:30. Plenty of Breeders' Cup conversation to be had amidst today's card as well. We get to do this tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. We get to do it again. 3 days. 3 days with me. That's a lot.
Two.
Well, for you too.
Yeah.
Greg had to suffer with.
Well, that's not my problem.
Who's your big horse today?
Big horse today.
Yeah,
big horse
yeah.
today. I'm really excited to see what Mayday Ready does in
Okay.
that race against Lake Victoria. She may not be good enough, but she's shown some tenacity, really outrun her odds on multiple occasions, and I'm hoping that she's a big price again. So I got to use her in most of my exotics, but I'm looking forward to Chancellor McPatrick. He's been so professional,
know.
so talented so far, and I think that if he makes it another 4 for 4, he is one of the horses that benefits most from the post position draw that he got in this year's Breeders' Cup outside of Lake Victoria. For you?
Scottish Lassie.
Okay.
I want to see Scottish Lassie run for the home team here. I'd like to see a good effort for that horse, for Jorge Abreu and Jose Lascano, and even Gaming's a horse that I like. It's funny going into the Breeders' Cup and you don't hear like the steam about all these big, great Bob Baffert horses that are going to blow you away. But I think Gaming's a horse that was screaming for more distance, and I really think we'll see if she'll run to that. But it should be a great day of racing. We've got great racing here. We've got great racing there. It's going to be a great weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can join Paul and I for breakfast tomorrow
Yeah.
at 9:45 a.m. to talk about tomorrow's card here. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in to Talking Horses. Good luck today.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.